coming back to the question today, someone asked that they find that they're very intellectual, that they intellectualize everything, that they think all the time. And they're wondering if this practice will help them manage or reduce that quality of constantly intellectualizing and overthinking, or if that's just part of their personality and that is not going to change. It's something that they'll have to just live with. And I would say that the answer, as far as I can come up with it today in this moment, is somewhere in the middle, which is to say that there are variations in the amount of intellectualizing or thinking that individuals have. And that's why we call some people, we call them intellectuals. I just call them miserable bastards, because that's usually what they are if they're thinking too much. They're constantly, and you see this, you see these brilliant intellectuals completely miserable in so many ways. Poor relations, unhappy, but constantly, even the philosophers, famous philosophers, like if you look at their lives, the quality of their life and what they went through, not something you probably would want for your own life. But very intellectual, able to think and try and follow something to the root. I don't mean to diminish that. Intellectual prowess and that type of knowledge is very important. Anyone that's picked up a book, non-fiction book, can be grateful for the intellectuals. But there is a limit to intellectualizing. And I think in my own case, having been in school, higher education for decades, it became apparent that there's always more to learn. There's always more I could learn. And I would constantly be thinking about whatever I was learning, or even when I wasn't learning, I was thinking all the time, trying to understand things intellectually. And it was a bottomless pit, and it created a lot of misery for me. So in my period as an intellectual, there's an expression in Spain, and it's called paja mental. Paja mental. And it means mental masturbation. Maybe you've heard this. Maybe it's not a common expression anymore. Mental masturbation. And at some point, it becomes that. It's just, you're just, cranking it out. It's not leading anywhere. You're not going to get a Nobel Prize. It's not going to, save humanity. It's just the addiction and the habit of thinking is so constant that you will overthink everything. And philosophy, this is why I initially loved philosophy and then eventually got tired of it, is it just didn't make my life any better at some level, at some point. I mean, there's the Stoic philosophers, there's pragmatic philosophy, and I'd say that would be the best kind if you're interested in improving your own life. But there were so many strains of philosophical, analytical philosophy in particular, like where it was just like this mental masturbation. And it didn't necessarily even end up being real, whatever the conclusion was. It was just based on these certain tenets of logic, and it was endless. And so that type of intellectualization can be there, not just in philosophy, but just in life in general. Constantly trying to understand or question everything in the mind. And so you develop that muscle, but then it becomes an aberration. It becomes a constant habit that never sleeps. And so that's the habit. And so when something happens or doesn't happen, then the mind just takes off in every single possible direction it can. And so we have people, suffering from a lot of mental illness. A lot of the people that suffer from mental illness, I would say, are predominantly over-intellectualizing everything. They're very heady. They'll find themselves lost in thought more than the average person. And, we ridicule people that aren't smart, right? That's what because we identify intellectualizing and how much knowledge you have, at the snap of your fingers. We associate that with intelligence, and that you're somehow, a higher order person. And the people that aren't as smart because they don't think as much, that we call them simple. Simple was an insult. Is an insult. He's simple. He's a simple guy. You know, he doesn't really think about me. He doesn't worry. He doesn't think about much. He just does his whatever. Gets up in the morning, does his thing. Just simple guy. So we've actually pathologized something that's healthier, and we've, glamorized and exalted the thing that is making us all sick, mentally ill, this over-intellectualization. So this person's question is very relevant. But then the second part of that question is, well, does this practice help me with that? Is it going to, balance that out or reduce it or just make it more manageable? And I think this is where the hope comes in, and because the answer, I would say, is yes. Yes, the answer is if you over-intellectualize and conceptualize and just can't turn off your mind, insight practice or even a concentration meditation where you're just focusing on one thing will help you. Absolutely will help you. It will take time because you have to break the addiction, the habit of thinking constantly. You have to break it. It won't be easy. You have to break that habit, but it can happen. You can change the habit of your awareness and how, what it prioritizes. Because when I ask you to sit and focus on the breath or whatever's predominant, in a way, I'm asking you to stop giving thinking the priority in your life. Give the breath. Notice the sensations in your body, the ambient sounds in the room. Give that the priority. Not thinking. We keep coming back from getting lost in thought to the present moment, being here, being now, in our perceptions, directly connecting with our perception. That is breaking the habit of constant intellectualization. So yes, over time this will improve. You will be more aware of what is happening in this moment throughout the body and the mind, but also throughout the body. The body is very helpful because it pulls you out of the mind. You can't think your way out of depression or anxiety if you haven't figured that out yet. Good luck. But with insight meditation, the goal is not just to decrease over-intellectualization. That will be a side effect of it. That's not the goal of it. The goal of it is to see the universal laws of nature, of your own nature, of the mind and the body. And one of the biggest ones we work with is the intelligence and the noticing, precognitive, non-intellectual noticing of change. You don't have to think about change. You can just witness it directly in your own mind and body. So you might witness change and then all start a narrative about it or a story. Oh, this has changed. Oh, what did the Buddha say? Oh, yeah. There was this philosopher. He talked about change too. And then there you go. Like you're off to intellectualizing. That we call the spiritual intellectual. They sit around and read books about spirituality and meditation, do very little meditation, because they're so curious intellectually and understanding, and they love reading the books because they're philosophical or talk about these universal questions. They miss the point completely. Practice. That's the thing we all struggle with. The practice of sitting and witnessing our own reality as it is. Nobody wants to do that. In fact, the simplest people are the best at it. Because they get the instruction. Oh, I'm just sitting and I'm witnessing and I'm aware. Okay, great. They don't have that constant chatter that a lot of us do, including myself. So the intellectuals really struggle with this meditation, and maybe any meditation, because the mind is so predominant, the thinking is so predominant, it doesn't let them get, a moment of awareness in without a thought squeezing it out. So there is hope. But the goal of this meditation isn't to stop you from thinking. Anyone that tells you that meditation is going to stop you from thinking permanently is obviously out to lunch. You have a brain, just like you have a heart. It thinks. It will continue to think. The goal of this meditation is not to stop thinking, although thinking may reduce over time because you're being aware of all these other forms of perception in the present moment, so you don't have time to just sit there and space out mentally. So thinking is meant to be a tool. But for us, it's become the default. it just tortures us. Sometimes it helps us, sometimes it's interesting, but a lot of the time it's completely unhelpful. And it thinks of all the things that we don't want to think about or we know aren't good for us. I have people suffering from anxiety and depression. They know that these thoughts aren't going to help them, but they just can't stop from just going and going and going and spinning out because they have nothing to break the rumination. They don't have a tool. They don't have a practice that helps them break that circuit. So, I hope that answers your question. Yes, you have a proclivity to over-intellectualizing. That is a habit of the mind, especially at this stage in your life. But through practice, you will be more and more with this moment as it is. And if you're thinking, then you'll just notice thinking and then come back to something else that's not absorbing you, lost in thought. And this will help you return to what we like to call sanity. Because overthinking leads to insanity. We go nuts. You can't be on that hamster wheel 24/7 and not go bananas. It's fucking exhausting, as you haven't noticed. It's exhausting. It's so bad to the point where people literally want to blow their brains out. Because they can't, they just want to shut it off. Just shut up. Just shut the fuck up, is what you want to say to your mind. Just be quiet. I don't care. Just stop. But it doesn't. Not like that. Not just by asking it to. But by retraining your attention and your quality of awareness over time, you won't resist thinking. You won't hate thinking. You won't try and stop it. You'll just notice when it's there, and you'll go, okay, I'm thinking. And then you'll come back to the next breath, or the sensation in your leg, or whatever it is. That's why we teach, just do it, just if it's really that difficult to break away from things, just do a light noting, thinking. Just a mental, silent mental note, thinking. There. You're aware you're thinking, and then you move back. You don't get sucked into the contents, just come back. So, it will help. But the goal, again, I will say, is not to end thinking. You cannot end your thinking permanently. But over time, you will have less frivolous, useless, hurtful thoughts that just arise and torture you throughout the day. That will be less of that because you'll retrain your mind to move away from that. No, I don't care what you're thinking. I'm coming back. I didn't ask for this thought. Okay, there it is. I'm back to the breath. So you're retraining your habit of mind. And this is a very powerful thing. To break the addiction to thinking is huge. Huge. If you manage just that from this practice, you will be light years ahead of so many others that just are tortured by their own thinking. And you don't need thought to be intelligent. Thought is just another form of perception. It's another form of activity that is occurring in your awareness. So as you learn that through your own experience, you will give less importance to thought because you won't identify yourself with it. Descartes was wrong as far as I'm concerned. I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am. Thinking is what makes me, brings me into existence. Incorrect. I am, therefore I think. I exist, I am. Human being, I am aware, I am conscious. Because I am aware, being, I exist, I can think. I can be aware of and I can be aware of sounds, and I can be aware of feelings, and all kinds of things. I am, therefore I can think. Not I think, therefore I am. I am predates, I think. Comes before I think. Thinking comes after, not before. Okay? So even just understand that switch. I am. This is what we are in this field of awareness. I am. You're just witnessing. The witnessing is the awareness. You're witnessing. There's the awareness. You're just aware, witnessing. And thoughts may bubble into that awareness. There's the thinking. But you're already existing. You're being. You're a human being. There you are, being. Thinking is just another form of perception, another form of its mental contents that come and go. They're not there all the time. You're not thinking every single, even the greatest intellectual that likes to think throughout the day will have gaps. Does that person cease to exist in those moments? Does their heart stop? No. There's gaps, and those gaps can grow as you practice more. Doesn't stop thinking from happening, but the spaces of just being, of just awareness as things are happening, that increases. And that intelligence is not intellectual intelligence. It's just that awareness of observation, of seeing things directly as they are, noticing things as they change. Okay? So, yeah, there is hope for all the intellectuals of the world. And like I said, if you think a lot, you probably suffer a lot too, especially when you're thinking about things you don't want to think about.